The Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly was the largest room Princess had ever seen. Giant pillars of white stone reached up toward a ceiling so high that clouds formed inside. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds sat in rows that curved around a central platform. The platform was made of crystal, and it glowed with soft blue light. Stood on that platform with her three older sisters. She kept her eyes down and her hands folded in front of her. Her wings, thin and pale, pressed tightly against her back. She wished she could disappear. Today was the selection ceremony. It was a tradition that had existed for 10,000 years. Princes from allied worlds would come to choose daughters of the Empire as their brides. It was political. It was about power and alliances. But it was also supposed to be an honor. Knew she would not be chosen. Her eldest sister stood tall and proud. Her wings were deep purple, the color of royalty, and they spread wide behind her like a cape made of silk. The second sister, Sora, had wings of bright gold that caught every light in the room. The third sister had wings of soft pink that moved gently even when there was no wind. And then her wings were gray. Not silver, which would have been acceptable, just gray, faded, weak. In culture, wings showed everything. They showed health, strength, and the ability to have strong children. Wings showed none of these things. From the day she was born, everyone knew she was different, wrong, broken. Her father, Emperor, never spoke about it. He simply looked past her as if she was not there. Her mother had died when was young, so there was no one to defend her. Her sisters were not cruel, but they were not close to her either. They had their own lives, their own futures, had nothing. The ceremony began. A tall being with skin like polished wood stepped forward. He was a prince from the forest world of. He walked slowly around the platform, looking at each princess. When he reached, his eyes moved past her without stopping. He chose. The crowd made sounds of approval, smiled, and stepped down from the platform to join her new future husband. One sister gone. Next came a prince made entirely of crystal. He was from Prime, a world where beings grew from minerals deep in the ground. Light passed through his body and split into rainbows. He walked around the platform twice. He looked at her for a long moment, and she felt hope rise in her chest. Then he turned away and chose Sora. The crowd approved again. Sora's golden wings flashed as she stepped down, two sisters gone. His heart beat faster. Only she remained. Surely the next prince would not choose her. Surely she would be safe from the final humiliation. A serpentine prince from the Empire slithered forward. His body was covered in scales that changed color with his mood. Right now they were a calm blue. He did not even look at. He went straight to and bowed his head, accepted with grace. Three sisters gone, only remained. The hall grew quiet. Everyone looked at her. Thousands of eyes from hundreds of species all focused on the small princess with the faded wings standing alone on the crystal platform. One prince remained. His name was, and he was from the Empire. There were insect-like beings, tall and covered in natural armor. They had 4 arms and faces that showed no emotion. They were known as warriors. Walked forward. His footsteps were heavy, and each one echoed in the silent hall. He climbed the steps to the platform and stood in front of. She made herself look up at him. His eyes were black and empty like deep holes. She could see nothing in them. For a long moment he just stared at her. Then he turned to face the crowd. "I refuse," he said. His voice was loud and harsh. "To send us damaged goods. I will not bind my bloodline to weakness." The words hit like physical blows. She felt the blood drain from her face. Her legs went weak, but she forced herself to stay standing. The crowd began to whisper. Some laughed. Some looked away in embarrassment. Some just stared with cruel curiosity. Emperor's face turned to stone. He sat on his throne above the platform and could see his hands gripping the armrests so hard his knuckles turned white. He was not angry for her. He was angry because of the shame she had brought to their family. The delegation began to stand. They would leave now, quietly, and try to forget this day. Would return home and spend the rest of her life hidden away. That was the future that waited for her. But then something happened. "I'll stand for her." The voice came from the back of the hall. It was clear and calm, and it cut through all the whispers like a knife through water. Everyone turned to look, even raised her head. A figure was walking down the central aisle. It was a male, not very tall compared to most species in the room. He wore a simple gray uniform with a small symbol on the chest. His hair was black, his eyes were dark, and his face was determined. He was human. Had never seen a human before, but she had heard of them. They were a young species, only part of the Galactic Assembly for 40 years. They came from a small planet called Earth. Most species thought they were primitive and unimportant. The human reached the edge of the platform. He looked up at, and then he looked at Prince. "I'll stand for her," he said again. The hall erupted. Alien lords began to shout. Some laughed harder than before. Prince's face, which usually showed nothing, twisted into something like disgust. "You," said, "a human, you are insects, you are nothing." The human did not react to the insult. He simply stood there, waiting. "Your traditions say that any recognized representative of a member species may stand in the selection ceremony," the human said. "I am Lieutenant Park of Earth's Diplomatic Corps. I am a recognized representative, and I am standing." An old being at the side of the hall checked the ancient books that held the ceremony's rules. After a long moment, he nodded slowly. "The human speaks truth," the old one said. "The rules allow it." The shouting grew louder. Emperor stood from his throne. His eyes burned with anger, but also with something else, something that might have been curiosity. "Why?" the Emperor demanded. "Why would you do this, human? What do you gain?" Lieutenant Park looked at. Their eyes met for the first time. She saw no pity in his gaze, no mockery, just quiet strength. "Where I come from," said, "we do not abandon people because they are different." He paused, and his next words were soft, but somehow everyone heard them. "I saw her face when she was rejected. No one deserves that." The hall fell silent again. Even Prince had nothing to say. Stood on the crystal platform, looking at this strange human who had stepped forward when no one else would. She did not understand him. She did not know what he wanted. But for the first time in her life, someone had chosen to stand beside her. She did not know if it was a gift or another kind of trap. But she knew that everything had just changed. The hours after the ceremony were chaos. Lieutenant Park found himself in a small room surrounded by angry people. Ambassador, the leader of Earth's diplomatic mission, paced back and forth in front of him. Her face was tight with worry and frustration. "Do you understand what you have done?" she asked. Her voice was controlled, but barely. "We have worked for 40 years to build respect in this assembly, 40 years of careful diplomacy, and you just walked into the most important ceremony in the galaxy and claimed an alien princess." Sat in a simple chair. His hands rested on his knees, and he did not look away from the ambassador. "I followed the rules," he said quietly. "The ceremony allowed it." "The rules and what is wise are not the same thing." Ambassador stopped packing and pressed her fingers to her temples. "The Empire is one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. Emperor could destroy us with a single order, and you just claimed his daughter like she was worth claiming," finished. The ambassador opened her mouth, then closed it again. For a moment she had no answer. Captain Han stood near the door. She was commanding officer, a tall woman with short hair and sharp eyes. She had not spoken yet, but now she stepped forward. "Lieutenant Park," she said, "you need to understand your position. You are a military officer. You do not have the authority to create political situations like this. You have put Earth in danger." "I know," said. "Then why?" Captain demanded. Was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was low. I have stood in that hall many times, watching ceremonies and meetings. I have seen how the powerful species treat the weaker ones. They laugh at them, they ignore them, they make them feel small. He looked up at his captain. Today, I watched that happen to a young woman who did nothing wrong. Her only crime was being born different, and no one helped her. No one even tried. He shook his head slowly. I could not stand there and do nothing. I am sorry if that causes problems, but I am not sorry for what I did. Ambassador sighed heavily. She sat down in a chair across from him and suddenly looked very tired. The problem, she said, is that it does not matter why you did it. What matters is what happens next. Emperor has requested a private meeting with you. He will decide whether this is an insult or an opportunity. And if he decides it is an insult, asked, then your career is over, and our relationship with the might be over too. Nodded slowly, he had expected this. I will accept whatever consequences come, he said, but I will not take back what I did. The meeting with Emperor happened 1 hour later. The Emperor's private chamber was dark and cold. The walls were black stone, and strange lights floated in the air like frozen stars. Emperor sat on a smaller throne than the one in the great hall, but somehow he seemed larger here, more dangerous. Walked in alone. He had been told to bring no weapons, no recording devices, no way to call for help. He was completely at the Emperor's mercy. Sit, Emperor commanded. His voice echoed in the chamber. Sat in the only other chair in the room. It was far below the Emperor's throne, forcing him to look up. You are either very brave or very stupid, the Emperor said. I have not decided which. Perhaps both, Your Majesty, replied. The Emperor's eyes narrowed, but there was a flicker of something that might have been amusement. Tell me, human, why would you shame yourself for a princess you have never met? My daughter is considered worthless by our standards. Her wings are faded. She cannot produce strong children. She has no political value. What use is she to you? Thought carefully before answering. With respect, Your Majesty, I do not see worthless when I look at Princess. I see a young woman who has been told her whole life that she does not matter. I see someone who was forced to stand alone while others laughed at her. That is not worthlessness. That is cruelty. The Emperor leaned forward. His eyes were sharp and searching. You still have not answered my question. What do you gain from this? Nothing, said simply. Earth will not ask for trade advantages. We will not request military support. We will not use this to improve our position. Then why? Met the Emperor's gaze directly. It was considered rude in culture to look at royalty so directly, but did not look away. Because where I come from, we believe that how you treat the weakest among you shows your true character. I saw something wrong happening and I tried to make it right. That is the only reason. The Emperor was silent for a long time, could not read his expression. He did not know if he was about to be killed or set free. Finally, the Emperor spoke. You interest me, human. Your species is young and weak. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. And yet you walked into a room full of beings who could kill you easily, and you challenged the entire system because you thought it was wrong. He paused. I am going to offer you a bargain. Waited. You will formally court my daughter for 1 year. During this time, you will spend time with her. You will learn our customs. You will prove yourself worthy of her, or you will prove yourself a fool. At the end of the year, if both of you agree, the union will be recognized. If not, it will dissolve quietly, and we will pretend this never happened. Nodded slowly, and if I refuse this bargain, then I will have you removed from this station and ban all humans from the Empire for the next 1,000 years. There was no threat in the Emperor's voice. He was simply stating facts. I accept, said. The Emperor raised one eyebrow. You do not wish to think about it. No, I made my choice when I stood in that hall. I will not go back on it now. For the first time, Something like respect flickered in the emperor's eyes. "Very well. You will meet my daughter tomorrow. I warn you, human, she will not make this easy. She has been hurt many times and she trusts no one. She will believe this is another trick, another way to humiliate her." "I understand," said. "Do you?" The emperor stood and looked down at him. "She is my daughter. I have not been a good father to her. I looked away from her pain because it was easier than facing it. But she is still my blood. If you hurt her, human, I will destroy everything you love." Stood as well. He bowed in the style which he had practiced many times. "I will not hurt her, your majesty. I give you my word." The emperor said nothing more. He simply turned and walked away, leaving alone in the dark chamber. The next day was brought to a garden filled with strange flowers that glowed in soft colors. In the center of the garden stood Princess. She was smaller than he remembered. Her wings hung low against her back, and her shoulders were tight with tension. She did not look at him when he approached. "Princess," he said softly, "it is an honor to meet you properly." She finally raised her eyes. They were filled with cold anger. "Do not lie to me, human," she said. "I know what this is. You want something from my father, or you want to make your species look good by pretending to be kind to the broken princess. I will not be your tool." Did not argue with her, he simply nodded. "You have every right to think that. Everyone in your life has used you or ignored you. Why would I be different?" She blinked, surprised by his answer. "I cannot prove my reasons with words," continued. "I can only prove them with time, so I will not ask you to trust me today. I only ask that you give me the chance to show you who I am." Stared at him for a long moment. Her expression did not soften, but something in her eyes changed slightly. "1 year," she said coldly, "and then this farce will end." 1 year, agreed. Neither of them knew that this year would change everything. The first 3 months were difficult. Princess was moved to a neutral station far from her home world. It was a place where different species lived together, a hub for trade and diplomacy. Was assigned as her official companion, which meant they had to spend time together every day. But did not make it easy. She spoke to him only when necessary. She answered his questions with short, cold words. When he tried to learn about culture, she corrected his mistakes with sharp criticism. When he brought her gifts, she accepted them without thanks and set them aside without looking at them. Did not complain, he simply kept trying. He studied language and customs every night after their meetings ended. He learned how to bow properly, how to address royalty, how to pour tea in the traditional way. He made many mistakes, but he never stopped learning. One morning, he brought her a small plant in a pot. It had pink and white flowers that opened and closed with the light. "This is called," he said. "It is the national flower of my homeland in Korea on Earth. It means eternity or endless bloom. The flowers fall and grow back again over and over. They never stop." Looked at the plant but did not touch it. "Why do you keep doing this?" she asked. Her voice was tired rather than angry. "Why do you keep bringing me things and trying to talk to me? What is the point?" Set the plant on the table near her window. "Because I want to," he said simply. "And because you deserve kindness, even if you do not believe it yet." Said nothing. But that night, when she was alone, she moved the plant closer to the light so it would grow better. In the 4th month, something began to change. Started watching more carefully. Not because she was interested in him, she told herself, but because she wanted to understand him. She wanted to find his weakness, his secret reason for being here. But she could not find one. She watched him treat everyone the same. When he spoke to the station's cleaning workers, beings that most people ignored completely, he thanked them for their work and asked about their lives. When he met with important diplomats, he was polite but not afraid. He did not change himself depending on who he was with. One day followed him secretly. She did not know why. She just wanted to see what he did when he was not with her. She found him in a lower section of the station, an area where refugees lived. These were beings who had lost their homes to wars and disasters. They had nothing and no one. Was sitting on the floor with a group of children. They were from different species, some with scales, some with fur, some with no features she recognized. He was teaching them to read. Stood in the shadows and watched for a long time. She saw laugh when a small creature made a joke. She saw him patiently repeat the same word 20 times until another child understood. She saw him share his food with them even though she knew he did not have much for himself. When he finally left, one of the children hugged him, hugged back gently and warmly. Returned to her room and did not speak to him for 2 days. She did not know how to process what she had seen. It did not match anything she understood about people. On the 3rd day, she finally asked him the question that had been burning inside her. What do you gain from helping those children? They have nothing. They cannot give you anything. Their parents have no power. Why waste your time? Looked at her with soft surprise. I do not think of it as waste, he said. Those children have had hard lives. If I can make their days a little bit better, that is enough. I do not need anything in return. But why? Pressed. Everything has a reason. Everyone wants something. What do you want? Was quiet for a moment, then he spoke carefully. On Earth, I grew up in a small village. My family was poor. My father died when I was young, and my mother worked very hard to take care of me and my sister. Sometimes we did not have enough food. Sometimes we were cold in winter. He paused, remembering. But there were people in our village who helped us. A neighbor would bring extra rice. A teacher would give me books for free. They did not ask for anything. They just helped because they could. He looked at directly. That is the world I want to live in. A world where people help each other because it is right, not because it is profitable. I cannot change the whole galaxy, but I can do my small part. Did not respond, but something in her chest felt strange. It took her a long time to recognize it as hope. In the 5th month, started talking to him. It began with small things. She asked him about Earth, about humans, about his life. He answered honestly, without trying to make himself sound better than he was. He told her about his mother, who still lived in their village and wrote him letters that took months to arrive. He told her about his younger sister, who was studying to be a doctor and who called him an idiot for joining the military. Found herself smiling at his stories. She had not smiled in a very long time. She began to share things too. She told him about her childhood, about how her sisters had always been loved while she was always ignored. She told him about the tutors who refused to teach her because they did not want to waste time on a princess who would never matter. She told him about the nights she spent alone, wishing she could cut off her faded wings and become someone else. Listened to all of it. He did not try to fix her pain with easy words. He did not tell her it would be okay. He just listened, and his silence was somehow more comforting than any words could be. One night, after a long conversation, finally asked the question she had been afraid to ask. Why did you really step forward that day? In the ceremony, you could have stayed silent. No one would have blamed you. Thought about his answer for a long time. I saw your face, he said finally. When Prince refused you, when everyone laughed, I saw how hard you were trying to stay strong. I saw how much it hurt you. He looked at her, and his eyes were gentle. And I thought about all the times in my life when I needed help and someone was there for me. I thought about what kind of person I wanted to be, and I knew that I could not walk away. Felt tears forming in her eyes. She turned away quickly so he would not see. You are very strange, Park, she whispered. I have been told that before, he replied, and there was warmth in his voice. That night after left, looked at the plant on her windowsill. It had grown strong over the months, its flowers bright and healthy. Endless bloom, he had said. Flowers that fall and grow back again, over and over. She touched one of the petals gently. Maybe, she said to herself, Maybe some things are not tricks. For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to believe that someone might truly care about her. Not because of what she could give them, not because of who her father was, just because of who she was. It was terrifying, and it was wonderful. And she was not ready to let it go. No alien prince chose the young princess, but a human stepped forward. Part 4: The Challenge. News traveled fast across the galaxy. By the 7th month, everyone knew about the human who had claimed the princess. Some thought it was romantic, some thought it was foolish, and some thought it was an insult that could not be ignored. Prince of the Empire was one of those who could not ignore it. He had refused Princess at the selection ceremony. He had called her damaged goods in front of thousands of witnesses. And now a human, a member of a species he considered lower than insects, had stepped forward to claim what he had rejected. In culture, this was more than embarrassment. It was a challenge to his honor. The message arrived at the neutral station on a cold morning. Was having tea with when a messenger entered the room. The messenger was tall and covered in black armor, and he moved with mechanical precision. "Lieutenant Park of Earth," the messenger said, "Prince of the Empire challenges you to." His cup fell from her hands and shattered on the floor. It was an ancient ritual, older than the Galactic Assembly itself, a duel to the death. "He cannot refuse," the messenger continued. "If he does, Earth will be marked as a species of cowards. Your people will lose all standing in the assembly." Did not move. His face showed no fear. "I understand," he said calmly. "When and where?" "The Grand Arena, 1 week from today. Combat until one fighter cannot continue." The messenger turned and left without another word. Grab's arm. Her grip was tight and her eyes were wide with fear. "You cannot do this," she said. "Is a warrior. He has been training for combat his entire life. He is 8 feet tall with armor that can stop energy weapons. His arms have blades built into them. You will die." Covered her hand with his own. "I know," he said quietly. "Then refuse. I do not care about honor or standing. I will not watch you die because of me." Shook his head slowly. "If I refuse, humanity loses everything we have built in 40 years. Every species will see us as weak, as cowards, and if humans are not worth respecting, then neither is anyone we stand with." He looked at her gently. "Including you." "I do not care about respect," his voice cracked. "I care about you living." It was the first time she had admitted out loud that she cared about him. Smiled softly. "I am not going to run away," he said. "I made a promise to stand beside you. I meant it." The next week was a blur of activity. Ambassador demanded that refuse the challenge. She argued, pleaded, and even threatened to have him removed from duty. But there was no legal way to stop a challenge once it was accepted. Captain offered to find a loophole in the ancient rules. There had to be something, some way out. But every path led to the same answer. The only way to avoid the fight was to surrender, and surrender meant shame. Human military advisors came to the station to help prepare. They studied physiology looking for weaknesses. They found very few, were built for war. Their bodies were living weapons. But they also found something interesting. "Are fast and strong," one advisor said, pointing to a display showing biology. "But they tire quickly. Their bodies generate a lot of heat, and they need to rest often during long fights. If you can survive the first assault, his energy will drop." Nodded. "So I need to not die for as long as possible." Basically, yes. It was not a comforting strategy. The night before the duel came to his room. She had not slept in days. Her eyes were red and her wings hung lower than ever. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You could leave. You could go back to Earth and forget about me. No one would blame you." Was sitting by his window, looking at the stars. "Do you remember what I told you about my home?" he asked. About the people who helped my family when we had nothing. Nodded. One of them was an old woman named Grandmother Bong. She had very little herself, but she always shared what she had. When I asked her why, she told me something I never forgot. He turned to look at. She said, "We are not measured by what we have. We are measured by what we are willing to give." I have thought about those words my whole life, and I have tried to live by them. He stood and walked toward her. "You deserve someone willing to fight for you, even if I lose, even if I die. You deserve to know that someone thought you were worth fighting for." Felt tears running down her face. She did not try to stop them. "You fool," she said. "You stupid, stubborn fool." She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. It was the first time they had ever touched like this. His warmth surprised her. His heartbeat against her ear was steady and calm. "Do not die," she whispered. "Please do not die." "I will try," he promised. The grand arena was massive. It was built in the void of space, a structure of glass and metal that floated between stars. Inside, seats rose in endless tiers, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Billions more watched through broadcasts sent to every world. In the center of the arena was the fighting floor. It was simple stone, marked with ancient symbols that glowed faintly. Prince entered first. He walked slowly, letting everyone see his power. He was even larger than remembered, his black armor shining under the lights. The blades on his arms extended and retracted in a show of threat. The crowd cheered for him. He was the favorite. He was expected to win in minutes. Then entered. He wore simple combat armor designed for humans. It protected his vital organs but left him able to move freely. In his hand, he carried a standard military combat blade. Nothing special, nothing impressive. The crowd fell silent. Then some began to laugh. The human looked like a child facing a monster. Sat in a special viewing area, her hands gripping the rail until her knuckles turned white. Ambassador sat beside her, face pale with worry. Captain stood behind them, jaw clenched tight. The signal came. The fight began. Attacked immediately. He crossed the distance between them in a flash, his bladed arm sweeping towards head. Dove to the side. The blade missed him by inches. He rolled and came up running, putting distance between them. Followed. Again and again he attacked, each strike powerful enough to cut a human in half, and again dodged, sometimes by the smallest margins. The crowd began to murmur. The human was not fighting back. He was just running, dodging, surviving. "Stand and fight, coward," shouted. His voice echoed through the arena. "Face me like a warrior." Did not respond. He kept moving, kept dodging, kept surviving. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 20. Something strange began to happen. The movements became slower. His strikes were less precise. His breathing, visible through the gaps in his armor, grew heavy. He was tiring. Was still moving, still dodging, still waiting. Humans did not have natural armor. They did not have claws or blades, but they had something else, something that many species did not understand. Endurance. Humans could keep moving for hours. They could push through pain, through exhaustion, through every signal telling them to stop. It was how they had survived on their own planet, hunting prey by simply chasing it until it could not run anymore. Did not know this, no one had told him. At the 30-minute mark stumbled, just slightly, just for a moment. But it was enough. Changed direction. For the first time in the fight, he moved toward his enemy instead of away. He ducked under a tired swing and struck at the joint where his leg armor met his body. The blade found its mark. Screamed and fell to one knee. Green blood poured from the wound. The arena went completely silent. Stepped back and raised his blade. He could have killed then. The prince was wounded and exhausted, unable to defend himself. But did not attack. "Yield," he said. His voice was calm but clear. This fight is over. Looked up at him with hatred, but he was beaten and he knew it. I yield, he growled. The arena exploded with noise. No one could believe what they had seen. A human had defeated a prince. Looked up at the viewing area where sat. Blood ran down his face from a cut he had taken during the fight. His body shook with exhaustion, but he managed to smile. Then he bowed to her, as deeply and respectfully as any noble. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling too. And across the galaxy, billions of beings watched a single human prove that strength was not always about power. Sometimes it was about refusing to give up. Humanity, once ignored and dismissed, was now watched with new eyes. Species that had never bothered to speak with humans began sending diplomatic requests. Trade offers arrived from worlds that had refused to deal with Earth before. Military alliances were proposed. Ambassador worked day and night to handle all the attention. She still thought was a fool, but she could not argue with the results. Humanity had earned something that 40 years of careful diplomacy could not achieve: respect. But for End, the larger changes meant nothing compared to the smaller one. The year was ending. In 3 days, they would have to make their choice. They could formalize their union and become officially bound to each other, or they could part ways and pretend none of this had ever happened. Had healed from his wounds, though he still moved stiffly sometimes. He spent his days with as he always had, walking through the station's gardens, sharing meals, talking about everything and nothing. But there was a tension between them now, a question neither of them wanted to ask. On the night before the deadline, found sitting alone on the observation deck. The great window showed a view of distant stars, billions of points of light scattered across the darkness. She sat down beside him. "The view is beautiful," she said quietly. "It is," he agreed. They sat in silence for a long time, finally spoke again. "My father came to see me yesterday." Looked at her with surprise. "Emperor here?" Nodded. "He wanted to know my decision. He said that whatever I choose, he will support it." "That is kind of him." Laughed softly, but there was pain in it. "Kind. I do not think he has ever been kind to me before. My whole life he looked at me like I was a mistake, a problem to be hidden away, and now suddenly he wants to support me." She was quiet for a moment. "He asked me if I truly wanted to bind myself to a human. He said there would be challenges. Our species are different. Our cultures are different. Many people will never accept us." "What did you tell him?" asked. Turned to face him. Her eyes were bright with emotion. "I told him that you never asked me to be anything other than what I am. For the first time in my life, someone saw me. Not my wings, not my bloodline, not my failures, just me." She reached out and took his hand. "I told him that is worth more than any empire." Felt his heart beat faster. He had hoped for this answer, but he had not let himself believe it would come. He said carefully, "Are you sure? This will not be easy. I am just a soldier from a small planet. I have nothing to offer you except myself." Squeezed his hand. "You offered yourself when no one else would. You stood for me when standing meant risking everything. You fought for me when fighting meant you might die." Her voice trembled slightly. "Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how precious?" She moved closer to him. "I have spent my whole life being told I am worthless. I believed it. I accepted it. And then you came and you made me believe something different. You made me believe that I matter." Tears formed in her eyes, but she did not look away. "I choose you, Park. Not because I have to, not because of politics or tradition. I choose you because you chose me first when no one else would." Reached up and gently brushed a tear from her cheek. "Then I choose you too," he said softly, "today and every day after." The ceremony was held on Earth, in a small village surrounded by mountains. It was not a grand event by galactic standards. There were no giant halls or crystal platforms. There was no crowd of thousands, just a simple outdoor space where flowers grew wild and birds sang in the trees. But too, it was the most beautiful place she had ever seen. Representatives from 50 species attended, watching with curiosity as human and traditions merged into something new. Ambassador stood as the official witness, her usual worried expression replaced by something that might have been pride. Captain stood at attention in her dress uniform, trying not to smile. His family was there too. His mother was a small woman with gray hair and gentle eyes. She did not fully understand the politics or the significance of what was happening, but she understood love when she saw it. She had cried when she first met, not because was an alien princess, but because her son had found someone who made him happy. His younger sister stood beside their mother. She was tall and confident, a medical student who had always teased about being too serious. But today she was quiet, watching her brother with new respect. "You did good, idiot," she whispered to him before the ceremony began. "She is perfect for you." Smiled, "I know." The ceremony itself was simple, and stood facing each other, holding hands. Ambassador spoke the official words that would bind them according to galactic law, but the words that mattered most were the ones they spoke to each other. "I promise to stand beside you," said, "in good times and hard times, when the universe is kind and when it is cruel. I promise to see you always for who you truly are." His voice shook as she replied, "I promise to trust you with my heart, to believe in the kindness you have shown me, to grow stronger because of your strength. I promise to love you, not because you saved me, but because you taught me to save myself." They exchanged small rings made of simple metal, nothing valuable, nothing impressive, but to both of them they were more precious than any treasure. As they completed the ceremony, something strange happened. The sun was beginning to set behind the mountains, casting golden light across the valley. And as that light touched its wings, they began to change. Colors appeared that had never been there before. Soft blues and greens and purples, swirling together like paint on water. Her faded gray wings came alive with light, glowing with beauty that took everyone's breath away. The guests gasped. Even Ambassador, who had seen many wonders in her career, stared in amazement. Emperor, who had traveled from to witness the ceremony, stepped forward. His face showed an emotion that had never seen on him before. "Wonder. It cannot be," he whispered. "The ancient records spoke of this, but I never believed." He turned to address the crowd. "In our oldest texts, there are stories of born with wings that seemed faded. They were called the light-touched, and it was said that their wings held colors meant for different stars, colors that would only appear when they found their true place in the universe." He looked at his daughter with tears in his eyes. "We thought them defective. We were wrong. They were simply waiting for the right light." Looked at her wings in disbelief. The colors continued to shift and dance, responding to the Earth's sun in ways she had never experienced before. All her life she had been told she was broken. All her life she had believed it. She was not broken, she had just been waiting. Took her hand and squeezed it gently. "You are beautiful," he said. "You always were." Laughed and cried at the same time. She did not have words for what she was feeling. Stepped forward and wrapped her arms around both of them. She did not know much about alien customs or galactic politics, but she knew how to welcome a new daughter into her family. "Welcome home," she said warmly too. And the princess, who had never belonged anywhere, finally understood what home meant. Years later, historians would write about the moment humanity's place in the galaxy changed. They would analyze the politics, the trade agreements, the military alliances that followed. But the beings who had been there remembered something different. They remembered a young soldier who stood up when no one else would. They remembered a princess who learned that her worth was not determined by others. They remembered a love that grew from kindness and became something that changed the universe. And across the galaxy, on 100 different worlds, beings who had been dismissed and rejected began to whisper a new phrase to each other. Even humans started small. It became a saying of hope, a reminder that greatness was not about where you came from or what you were born with. It was about what you chose to do with what you had. On Earth, in a small village surrounded by mountains and built a life together, they faced challenges, as Emperor had warned, but they faced them together, and together they were stronger than any obstacle. Every evening they would walk through the garden where they had been married. The flowers bloomed there, eternal and stubborn, just like the people who tended them. And sometimes, when the sunset light was just right, its wings would glow with all the colors of the universe. She was not broken, she was not weak, she was simply meant for a different light. And she had finally found it.